What is complete balanced wellness? I think this is something that is a harder concept to understand if we just through the lens of physical wellness. A lot of people um, initially come to me for working on physical wellness, like what do I eat? When do I eat it? What supplements do I take? Um, because of my medical training, that is the backdrop of a lot of the time I've spent in my life, like educating and teaching and helping people feel better, is through their physical body. Eat these things, move your body this way, um, avoid these things. And if we look at wellness from a purely physical standpoint, it would make sense to start with, okay, let's take a look at your diet. Let's take a look at what's working in your life. Let's take a look of the things we need to get removed from your life, from your diet. Let's reset your gut health. Here's some things to eat. And while all of that is super important, not denying how important that is, we completely miss the other half and maybe the most important aspect of total health and wellness when we neglect our emotional and our spiritual health. And that's the reason why part of my wellness education and courses and classes and even just the whole premise of my entire company, Soul via Soul, we get to our soulful selves, our most connected part of ourselves, through the soles of our feet. So through the vessel. And a large part that is what we eat, how we move our body, and our connection to our bodies. Yes, that's important. And it's becoming more and more important as I put on my therapist hat, because I'm also a licensed therapist, that we see that, and I have seen and working with people, that if we don't move into that realm of emotional and spiritual health, we're never going to make the gains in our physical health that we could make, because our subconscious mind runs the show. And even the health of our cells, if we go to changing and healing on a cellular level, that is not done through the things we eat or how we move our body. Again, those are important. However, they are just skimming the surface of what true balanced wellness is all about. In order to get to balanced wellness, in order to get to true health, we have to go into the subconscious mind. And we do that by going inward through mindfulness activities, through spending time in nature, through breath work, through meditation, through journaling, through rest. As we hit the pause button and go inward with courage, that's where we start to find who we really are. What is our purpose here on this earth? What are my passions? And more importantly, or as important, we find the barriers to us believing and reaching for our dreams in this life. Because what we believe in the subconscious holds the key to how we move forward in our life. And buried in the subconscious is truly what we believe about ourselves. The negative, sometimes real, of self-talk that goes on in our subconscious mind, that is literally driving the boat in your life. And again, it's subconscious. So this is not, a lot of people struggle with even having awareness that this is what is happening, that this is what is going on. But the subconscious mind is where all of our dreams and passions and what we truly believe about ourselves lives. And that's where our childhood traumas, our attached to. So the beliefs that we have about ourselves are literally formed when we are in childhood. That's where we start deciding who we are. And if you think about it, the mind of a child is not fully formed. The mind of a child who is completely dependent on the adults and the caregivers in their life is formed in response to that early relationship. If you have even the best of childhoods, if you have consistent, loving parents, that's awesome. But you don't necessarily have that in grammar school, or sometimes teachers are not so kind, or friends of the family, or relatives, or you can't and we don't live in this sheltered cocoon as we are growing up. We are exposed to lots of different beliefs, lots of different people who influence and are responsible for us, caregivers of all kinds and shapes, and daycares and providers and aunts and uncles and friends and neighbors. And there's a whole slurry of people that are involved in our growth. Not everyone is going to be emotionally responsible and consistent. There's going to be people as we are growing up that we come in contact with that are not going to be so nice, that are going to be struggling with their own addictions or demons or unhealed traumas. Whenever we have instances as we're growing up where we come up against any sort of inconsistency or hurt or pain or disappointment, we don't have the ability as children to look at those adults in our life and think, oh, well, they're struggling with their own stuff. They're working through some things. They're having a bad day. They're struggling with some addictions. We don't have the ability to do that as children. And because we are so emotionally dependent on the caregivers in our life, we put them on a pedestal. We need them. We are emotionally dependent on them to love us because they have to take care of us. They have to provide food and shelter and the basic needs. And so what we do as a natural response to just growing up, we start to attach all the inconsistencies and all the pains and hurts that are occurring as we grow up as something is wrong with us. Oh, well, the reason this person is screaming at me is because I've done something bad, which means I am bad, which means I'm unlovable. And when you're 5 or 6, or whenever you make that decision about who you are in that moment from the mind of a child, that sticks. And you think about the number of instances that we all have growing up where we have been disillusioned or disappointed, met with inconsistent messages from the adults in our life. And we don't know how to make heads or tails of it. We don't know how to say, oh, well, X, Y, and Z, because that's logical from an adult vantage point, because we are children. Our brain is not fully formed. The only decision that we can come to, the only conclusion that is available to us in that moment is there must be something flawed with me. I am not lovable. I am not good enough. I am not worthy to receive the love and care and consistency from the adults in my life. Therefore, something is wrong with me. And that vulnerable, beautiful, open-hearted child starts to go deeper and deeper and deeper into hiding. We bury that vulnerable, sensitive, empathetic, heart wide open part of us because it's too dangerous to live life that way. That part of us gets buried. That little child in us starts to decide we are a whole host of inadequacies. Now, the really, not that it's the hard part, but the eye-opening part is that at some point in our adult life, something happens. Often it's a transition. Often it's when we have our own big disappointment of some kind, where we have uh, a divorce or a death, or we have a loss often that brings us to our knees and we start the journey of looking inward. When we start that process, when we go into the subconscious, when we start to look at our life and we look around and we realize that we are in narcissistic relationships, that we are people pleasing, that we have difficulty saying no, that we don't have any boundaries in our life, that we are walking on eggshells around the people around us, that we don't feel worthy of rest. We don't feel worthy of loving ourselves. We are martyring ourselves right and left to take care of everyone else but ourselves. When we look around and see that that's the example of what's in our life, that's an exact manifestation of what you believe about your worth. If you really do believe you're unworthy of good things, you're not going to have good things in your life. If you truly don't deserve, or you feel you don't deserve, that you're worthy of love, you're not going to have loving relationships. But we don't often understand that what we have in our life as adults is a exact replica of what we believe in our subconscious mind. It's that powerful. So when we do the work, when we decide we're ready to do the healing work, we're ready to get on the bus and take that trip inside our hearts and take a look around and go, why is my life not exactly like I really want it to be? Because now we have a fully formed brain. Now we're fully formed adults. And we look around and go, this isn't what I want my life to be. This isn't a reflection of what I value. This isn't how I thought it was going to be. When we wake up and decide that something has to change, that something is ourselves. And more importantly, that something is the way we view ourselves. And that necessitates looking at where that started. Why do you believe you're unworthy? Well, it started when you were 5 or 4 or 3 or 7, when you were experiencing those hurts and pains, and you decided right then and there, at the ripe old age of 5 or whatever, that you were unworthy of being loved. Until we heal that part, until we go back and journey inward to that little child that's still hiding in the corner of your life, we're never going to change what's in your current day life. It doesn't matter if I tell you to eat this or eat that. It doesn't matter if I say move your body this way. If you, to your core, do not feel worthy of loving yourself fully and completely and wholly, it will fall on deaf ears. And it might stick for a few weeks or a few months, but it won't be consistent because the issue is still there. The core belief around who you believe you are is still limited by that subconscious thought about your worth that you formed when you were a child. So, in order for your life to look different today, we have to go back to that point. We have to go back and undo those limiting beliefs because now you do recognize that people have bad days, that people struggle with their own limiting thoughts of worth, that people have addictions, that people have pains and hurts that they carry in their life, and that it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You are lovable, whole, and complete, just the way you are. And when you go back and heal those instances of where you formed that initial belief about your worth, nothing in your life changes. That's why doing the healing work is tied to overall health and wellness. Yes, we want health and wellness in our physical lives. And in order to get that, to have sustained health and wellness, we have to go back to the source. We have to go back to the little girl, little boy version of you that first decided that you weren't lovable, that you weren't worth the attention, the consistency, the love from the adults in your life. Now, as an adult, you can go back and tell that child, that little girl version of you, what she needs to hear, what she now needs to know. She did nothing wrong. She's lovable, whole, and complete. That's the message she needs to hear in order to heal. And when you heal that part of you, when you go back and do that work, you will literally change what comes into your life in the present moment. You go back, you clear the coding, you undo the messages that are false and limiting, and you replace them with what is truth. And when you do that, everything about your life will change in present moment. So yes, I hear you. I hear you. You want health and wellness today. Awesome. That's where we start. Now, actually, that's where we end. Where we start is we have to journey back. We have to journey back to the unhealed subconscious beliefs that formed in childhood from traumatic events in your life. It doesn't have to be big trauma. Again, these are little hurts and disappointments that happened along the way from the slurry of people that were in our lives as we grew up. That's the journey. Health and wellness is the goal, but the journey has us taking a trip backwards. That's where sustainable, long-lasting change has to start. We journey inward to get to where we want to go in present day. That's true health and wellness. Body, mind, and soul.